Okay, Judy, you were the one who selected today's topic. Well, you select all the topics anyway, but this was a particularly interesting one. Why don't you enlighten us?
Well, the topic today that I wanted to talk about was the afterlife and what happens when we pass over. It's a question I get asked a lot, and the more mediumship I do for people, the more interested I've become in the subject.
And you said to me just a few minutes ago that you've had people that come in that are looking for something psychic, whatever that may be, and I postulated that people that are looking for this type of thing are already kind of leaning towards a belief in the afterlife. But then you said that sometimes people are very skeptical about it, even though they're coming in to see a psychic. They're skeptical of the afterlife. So then...
they're skeptical of the whole process. They're skeptical that there is such a thing as a psychic. They're also very skeptical as to whether there is an afterlife and whether we actually are channeling through or talking to their loved ones.
Okay, so before we go on with that, why would you think that people would be coming in if they're skeptical? Are they curious? Do they want it to be true? Is that what's the general consensus of why people are coming in to see you, if indeed they're skeptical of everything?
I believe they're coming in with hope. They're hoping that it is true, and they're hoping that the person they're going to see is good enough at what they do that they can convince them that there is something. I believe they come in with hope.
Is there something that's maybe happened within their lives that triggers that?
Usually, yes. There's someone that's died and they're devastated and they don't know how to deal with it, or they've had some event in their life that has made them look at the whole purpose of life.
So when people come in to get a communication with a loved one who's passed on,
Mm-hmm.
is there... Are they looking at it purely, and I'm having a kind of a difficult time trying to phrase it here, are they really looking at it to really hope that there's there, or are they just coming in thinking, well, because of the devastation that they've gone through emotionally with this event, that maybe this is just some way to kind of help them alleviate that, so that maybe when they leave they don't necessarily have to believe it, but maybe they go, well, okay, fine, at least I got some sort of my own imagination to help me out here, or are they really seeking a communication with the dead?
Well, I think there's some truth in what you've said. For some of them, they come in and they don't actually want to believe it, but they're hoping that it's true, but they're very set in their ways that this is all totally not true. And then there's others that come in and they're extremely skeptical and they don't think anything is going to come out of it, and then they are told things and they change their minds and they go, well, that's quite unique. So you get a little bit of both. But there are also people that are avid believers and they absolutely know that this is real, and they come in to have a conversation because they want to talk to their loved ones that have passed over, and they want to hear if there's any messages for them specifically. And the interesting thing is, it doesn't matter how many I do, there's always something specific that I give in the message that is personal to that person. One that was really fascinating to me was this gentleman's brother had died, and all I could see was this picture, and I just kept seeing this picture and I had no idea what it was, so I drew it and I said to him, I don't know what this is. And he says, oh my goodness, he says, I think that's my coat of arms. And I went, what, you have a coat of arms? And he said, yes, I do. So we went online on the computer, and sure enough, it was his family coat of arms. So that was his brother's way of saying, hey, this is real, this is me. So there's always some kind of message that is given that they know that that is the person, and that's how it feels. There's usually also some kind of communication that the spirit has also been doing with that person. They've been finding dimes, or things have moved in their home, or they're getting senses there's someone there. So sometimes they need validation that what they're seeing and what they're hearing is actually from their loved ones, which I find quite special. It's a great gift to be able to give that to somebody.
So as we go along with this little chat here, there's questions that come to mind. And
I'm sure there is, Scott.
And I don't know if I can remember them all, because there's a couple I got lined up right now.
Okay.
One of them is that how long, after, and this tie, I suppose the two tie together, because you do have, well, the living person wants to communicate with someone who's passed on. But I think you talked to me before about sometimes the passed on person wants to communicate with the living as well.
Absolutely.
And the other question that would go along with that is, how long can that occur over? So someone has passed away recently, and I suppose that, like you said, a lot of people come in there and they want to talk to the person right away, and they get that. But then, it's like, I got a friend, your ex-husband, that we get together for a beer, like once a month. It's almost clockwork. We set up other, so can people do that for a period of time? How long do the people who've passed on carry on with where they're at, which I suppose is leading to other questions, but we'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, the period of time that the people can communicate after.
Well, usually they can communicate basically pretty well within 3 days. Sometimes if people come in before 3 days has passed, it can be difficult. But if they've been gone 3 days, it seems they come through a lot easier. Not everybody comes through, by the way. They have a choice too. But it does seem there's about a 3 day. And how long? I really couldn't answer that, because sometimes the person doesn't come in at all, and then I assume they've already come back, or they just don't want to talk. I have no way of knowing.
Oh, the talk,
on the other side, the spirit on the other side. I still think of them as people.
Right. Okay.
Because they are.
Right. And now I've forgotten what the first part of that question was.
Well, that was about time, but one thing I wanted to bring up today was that death and going through the tunnel into the afterlife has a pattern. A pattern is becoming more and more through to me. So I know what kind of person died. I know who they were when they died. I know if they were angry, because they seem to not be quite all the way over yet. They're not happy. They're still angry and can be a little closer, and it's like ghosts, It's like they chopped off my head, and so they don't want to leave. So you get a feeling, a sense of the state that person was in when they died. People that were bitter can take a long time to go through till they get to the other side, and I can actually feel them. They're still in that tunnel. They haven't got to that place where they become one, because I sincerely see when you get over to the other side that your subconscious mind, your soul, your spirit, and your conscious mind will combine, and then you have all the knowledge is open to you, your past lives. Everything becomes clearer to you, and you become at peace. And even though you'll still be trying to help your loved ones and, do all that kind of work, that's a different feeling altogether. So people that are truly loved and are truly loving, when they pass, they seem to go right through, and they're right there, and they're just so peaceful, and their messages are beautiful, and the sense when you feel them is they're at peace, but they're still trying to help people they love on this side. They talk to their spirit guides and try to be a little more helpful. So I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit today because I've been finding that extremely fascinating. That you can actually feel suicides. Oh my goodness, suicides. When a person has committed suicide, I get a pain in my soul the minute they come through, and it's like they're still in grief, and you know they're in the tunnel and they haven't made it through yet. Sometimes I feel loved ones coming through, trying to help them through, and it's quite a sensation that I get from each and every type of spirit that has died, type of person that has died.
So you say once they go through that tunnel, then is that the point where you're saying they, generally speaking, after 3 days they're there and then you can communicate with them, or is this something where they go after?
You can talk to them when they're in the tunnel. Okay, they communicate with you in the tunnel. So, sometimes people come to me because the person has committed suicide, and they can feel them. They can feel the grief. They can feel the pain. They can feel that they aren't at peace yet, and they'll ask me to do a ritual to help them go over, to get them over the other side, and to actually call on their relatives to come and help them. And that will be something that I will do for them.
You mean the relatives that already passed
Yes.
on? Okay.
Yes.
So when a spirit wants to help their living family, what is it that they can do? Like, how is their help manifested in the real world?
When your loved ones pass, and I've heard a lot of people say their lives change after their loved ones passed. What they do is they talk to your spirit guides. Sometimes they ask them to leave. They ask your spirit guides to leave and let them come in as a spirit guide, so they can help you more, so they can give you more messages, so they can help you. They will actually try to work on, if there's people that are hurting you, that are not playing fair or that kind of thing, they will try to talk to their spirit guides to make them see things better. They can actually give you messages, so you go certain places, you do certain things. It's amazing how your loved ones can help you.
So let's say that your loved one was an idiot, okay? I mean, nice person, but they were an idiot. They didn't, throughout their life, I mean, not idiot in the sense that, they couldn't, like, finish high school or something like that, but just because in life they were stupid. They drank a lot. They did things wrong, you know? This person, I mean, do you find, in your experience, if you have run into these people, are they able to help out in some way? Like, what's the communication like with those people? You mentioned when they go through the tunnel, now they have access to all of the information.
When they get to the other side,
they
have access to all the information. When they're in the tunnel, they don't have that access. Okay. So they have not combined yet. So getting through to the other side of the tunnel is extremely important. And the faster you go through, the quicker it is that you get to that state of full knowledge. When you're in the tunnel, you're still separated.
So
your emotions are still really at work in the tunnel.
When you communicate with people, where do you communicate with them the most? In the tunnel or in once they go through the tunnel?
That depends on my customers.
Okay.
So if I have customers that are coming in and their loved ones have been really angry and really upset and annoyed, they will still be in the tunnel. If they've committed suicide, them I find a lot in the tunnel. Murder victims very often are right here, and
they're choked. Right.
And they don't seem to want to go through until they get judgment. Even here, they're still vested in that whoever did it to them is going to get caught. So that there seems to be a whole. We're still emotionally attached to what's going on here. Until we get to the other side, then we're emotionally attached to the people we love here.
Isn't that sort of typical of all human nature, though? It's always greener on the other side, greener grass on the other side. when you're over there, you know, if you got straight hair, you want curly hair. You got curly hair, you want straight hair.
Mm-hmm.
If you're alive, some
Mm-hmm.
people would rather be, or if they're in the tunnel, they're thinking, well, wait a minute. I know I liked it back better there, you know.
Well, they can't let go. It's kind of like their emotional attachment is still here. I'm so angry at them. I'm not leaving. I'm still focusing on that, and that's where their focus goes. Where your focus goes, your energy flows, results show. So they get stuck in that tunnel, and it can take years for them to get through that tunnel. But if they're happy and they're at peace and they were ready to go, then they go straight through. And the more love that people feel for them here, the faster they go through the tunnel, because the love helps to shift them through.
So
That's my observation.
Oh yeah,
I can't prove any of it.
Well, yeah, and you're.
But this is
course.
my observation.
Sure. There's nothing provable. I mean, it's just what comes through you. You don't even know if it's right or wrong. It just comes through you, right?
Well, yeah.
You know what the message is.
Yeah.
You're getting that clearly, but as to
Yeah.
you can only put together and piece together what you experience, what is happening.
Exactly.
So, what kind of questions can you ask? Well, I suppose it's a two-part answer. What kind of questions do people ask, and then what kind of peoples could you ask? Now, what I mean to say is, if I had someone that had passed on, let's say that there's a really practical question you need to ask, right? Grandma went, she slipped off quietly in the night. We know she had a will. We thought it was here, but it's not here. As lame as that may sound,
I get that a lot.
You may want to ask, Grandma, where'd you put it? Oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
up on, it's in behind the book somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
So can you ask, and then the other type of question might be something as simple as, well, what's it like?
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. So people will come in for specific messages. People often will come in for forgiveness. And it's quite interesting, because if they're in the tunnel, they usually won't give any forgiveness. But I'm very kind. So I don't tell them totally they're not forgiven yet. There's no point in that.
Well, yeah.
But if they're through to the other side, then they're already forgiven. They're forgiven. So, yeah, it's a different experience. What are they like? What are the messages like? Sometimes they're very loving. Sometimes they're very practical. Sometimes there'll be something as silly as, you're going out with this new fella and he is not to be trusted, run. And they'll look at me and they'll go, whew, okay, but Mum is watching over you, type of thing,
So has Mama ever given the location of the will? Have you ever run into anything like that?
Yes. I've had things that have been lost that I've been able to tell them where they were, and they found them and got them. And sometimes they show me quite bizarre things. And yeah, it's always very appropriate to them. One was, her husband had died and she was totally devastated, and he'd only been gone 3 days. And her question was, how do I know you're really talking to him? I described him to a T. Well, everything I'd said was true, but she's saying, well, how do I know? And they kept showing me a Mr. Potato Head. And I said, well, I didn't want to say I'm seeing a Mr. Potato Head. It sounds, yeah, right. And I said, well, he's showing me a giant potato head, Mr. Potato Head. And then she burst into tears. She said, yeah, he built one in our basement for our kids to play with.
Oh.
So they always give you something specific. They always give you a message that is appropriate only for them. The only way, I couldn't possibly have known this. And they let them know. So they know it's not a fake. It seems to be very important to them to do that.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you about another type of question that I would like to ask somebody if I was able to communicate with somebody, although by virtue of the fact that they were answering me would give me a partial answer to this. But what I would like, the question I would have to ask would be, is there a God? Or, and we can edit this out if you want, or if there is indeed a God, well, is he a Christian God? Is he Talmudic God? Is he Judeo what?
Well,
You know
you
what I
see,
mean?
isn't that interesting? Because a few weeks ago I had a young woman in, and I said, your father's passed, but he's hiding behind a tree, and he doesn't want to come out. She says, that's my dad. He's a Jehovah's Witness. He doesn't believe in this. So, I think you still hang on to your beliefs. And I think just like we create our own reality here, I think there's a little bit of that going on the other side. There's a lot between heaven and earth that I don't know yet, don't understand. And, but I have a feeling that we all hang on to our beliefs even when we go over there. And yes, there's a God, but what is God? God is vibration, God is energy.
And yeah, you brought that up before, and you just brought it up now, that we are creators of our own reality, be it here or in the afterlife.
Right.
And maybe that's the subject for part 2 of
Maybe
what we'll
it
be
is.
talking about here. Because your next client is here.
Right.
Shall we end it here then?
We should. Thank you, Scott.